Tomorrow is the day that we finally find out what a woman is, according to the Supreme Court, for the purposes of the Equality Act. Now, this is for Women's Scotland case against the Scottish Government, and for Women Scotland are arguing that women should mean biological adult human females, whereas the Scottish Government think that women includes biological women as well as men who have gender recognition certificates which says they're women. And you can see the obvious problem there. What I wanted to talk about is how Amnesty International, the once well-respected human rights charity, has said that there is misinformation surrounding the Supreme Court case about what a woman is. Amnesty International has intervened ahead of the expected ruling being handed down on the 16th of April, which is tomorrow if you're watching this on the day that this video goes out. In a statement, the chief executive at Amnesty International has said Amnesty wishes to highlight the amount of dangerous misinformation that remains around this case, as an eye-watering amount of time is spent by commentators berating trans people who make up just 1% of the population. A classic trans rights activist line that trans people make up such a tiny amount of the population. Why are you so bothered? Well, actually, because women make up over 50% of the population, and if we say that some men, the men that say that they're women, are allowed into women's only spaces, that affects all women. It's nothing to do with trans people, it's all to do with men who want to come into women's only spaces because they say that they're women. It's not about trans people, it's about men, biological males, who want to come into women-only spaces. It's not because they're trans that we don't want them in there, it's because they're male. Women who say that they're men, more than welcome, because guess what? They're women. Because they're biologically female. We've known for a long time that Amnesty International is completely ridden with gender ideology. When the Taliban introduced even more restrictions against women, Amnesty International said that under the Taliban, women and girls were discriminated against in many ways for the crime of identifying as a girl. Do you think the Taliban goes round and asks everyone what their pronouns are before they decide whether they're allowed out of the house without a male relative? I don't think so. I don't think the Taliban are having to do genital inspections either to tell who is male or female. It's almost like they know who the women are. How is it the Taliban know who the women are, but the Scottish Government don't? So, Amnesty International has said that legal gender recognition as it works now is essential for trans people to enjoy the full spectrum of human rights each of us is entitled to and live free from fear of discrimination. Amnesty has intervened in this case as it is a question of human rights which affects us all. For Women's Scotland's case is arguing that for the purposes of the Equality Act, i.e. where single-sex spaces are allowed or given provision for, because it is under the Equality Act that single-sex services are said to be justifiable, they are arguing that for the purpose of the Equality Act, woman should mean biologically female. It should not include men or biological males who have a piece of paper, i.e. a gender recognition certificate, that says that they are women. Why is Amnesty International suggesting that men who have a piece of paper that says they're women, for those men, it is their human right to go into female-only spaces? This is what women mean, or TERFs mean, when they say that trans is a men's rights movement. The only people this would benefit when we talk about trans rights in this situation about single-sex spaces, the only people this would benefit are men who want to go into women's spaces. And they admit here that the Equality Act already has exemptions which allow for the exclusion of trans people from single-sex services if it is proportionate. Even the way that this is written, it's not about banning trans people from single-sex services, it's about banning male people from female services and banning female people from male services, because that's what a single-sex service is. It is not a single-sex service if you allow people of both sexes into it. A blanket policy of barring trans women from single-sex services is not such a proportionate means. So he thinks that some men who say that they're women should be allowed in. But if you don't ban trans women from single-sex services meant for women, then that wouldn't be a single-sex service. By all means, trans women go in the male ones, because that would be a single-sex service because trans women are male. How can it the only thing I can put it down to is brainwashing. How can they not see that it does not make logical sense to say that you should not ban trans women from single sex services? I mean, and he doesn't say here whether it's female or male services, but the For Women Scotland here is concerned about female single sex spaces. So if you're saying banning trans women from single sex services for men, of course that would be wrong because trans women are male and they should be entitled to go into male single sex services. So he goes on to say, in many countries, groups that want to limit the autonomy of women, this is literally the opposite. They want to give women the right to single sex services, and LGBT plus people are bringing legal challenges to erode human rights protections. The only right that will be taken away if For Women Scotland win here, is the right of men who say that they're women to go into single sex spaces for women. He goes on again to say whether it is the right to legal gender recognition, the recognition of LGBT families, or the right to access healthcare and abortion services, the arguments tend to be very similar. This is one of those cases. The case has nothing to do with anything other than what a woman means for the purpose of the Equality Act. And here we have Tess Y MSP saying this is disgraceful from Amnesty International ahead of Wednesday's Supreme Court ruling. Seeking to protect women's rights is not aggressive. It is not some kind of far right agenda. So there you go. There is Amnesty International proving itself to be a load of tosh once again. If you do want to watch history being made one way or the other tomorrow morning, you can get the link on For Women Scotland's Twitter to the Supreme Court website where you can watch it live. Maya has put up a very helpful summary here of what could happen tomorrow. So, if For Women Scotland wins, it could be great, and the Supreme Court says that sex in the Equality Act means biological sex and women's rights are protected. If it's somewhere in the middle, they'll throw it back to Parliament and they'll have to sort it out, or they might decide something along the lines of sex means your sex on paper, so your birth certificate or your gender recognition certificate, which basically will destroy women's rights, lesbians' rights, because they also won't be able to organise on their own, because they'll have to allow heterosexual men who say that they're women, who therefore also say that they're lesbians, into their spaces. So yeah, from 9:45 tomorrow morning, we will be finding out what a woman means, and we'll know once and for all what the law means when it comes to women's rights. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Connie Shaw. Subscribe to Reason UK if you haven't already.